Hey, good to be with you guys. We had to skip September. We wanted to do one in September, but had conferences and I was traveling and stuff, so I couldn't do it. And so we definitely wanted to make sure we do it this month, and we're going to do it next month, and try to do one of these get-togethers once a month, hopefully. And again, just spending time with you guys, and then being able to have you guys bring your questions, because a lot of times you're in this formal setting, you're on Sunday morning, and then of course Jeremy's teaching his class on Sunday, and sometimes you don't get a chance to get all your questions answered because you're hearing the preaching, and Jeremy's got a lesson and I'm preaching, and so
I don't have the answer.
and so we just thought, let's just make a video. Is it getting too cold in here, or are you guys okay? You're all good? Okay. To just taking a chance to, hey, if you got something on your mind, let's try to tackle it as much as we can, because we would rather you get the information that's right, because a lot of times people are getting their information on the internet, and they're getting it, and you don't know the sources sometimes on the internet. Where is that coming from? Who said that? And so there's a lot of junk out there that are bombarding you guys, especially on social media. And so we wanted to make sure that, if something comes up, and you're going to see trends out there, man, there's some crazy stuff trending right now. And if you don't have the right voices listening to you, can get swayed by that stuff. So we just want to make this available to you. And then, obviously we're going to be doing some events together and hanging out and stuff like that. I think Rory said he had something going on in his house in a while. And then the Ogdens are with us. I don't know if you met them, but they're planning to maybe have some events where maybe we just do a campfire, bonfire type of thing, and we all hang out and eat and have a good time. And so we just want to just make sure that we love you, and we're hanging out with you, and we want to be with you, and because you're in you're in a difficult time right now. You're in your 20s, maybe your 30s right now, and you're making a lot of decisions right now, life decisions, big decisions, man. Like, hey, what kind of career am I going to do? Who am I going to marry? That kind of thing. Am I going to have kids? All that, those types of things. That, that sets the course for a lot of things, man, and so you're at that time. So if we can lean in on that, some of us are older people. We've went through the school of hard knocks, and we've learned sometimes the hard way. We'll be able to first to tell you, man, it's tough. So anyway, I wanted to open it up now. If you have any questions, and no matter what you want to go into, relational, theology, apologetics, whatever you guys want to tackle, anything. We're dealing with a lot of stuff. I will say this. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Mine's pretty high.
Let's get a mic on him. Here we go.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
So my name's Anselmo, or I go by Mo. I'll say it easier. I guess one of the things I find most fascinating in the Bible is the Nephilim. Yeah, the Nephilim, and then also I think kind of if I can make a connection, also what I'm seeing on the news with aliens and stuff. So how this is just a few, and I don't know how much you were maybe, because I'm talking to other Christians, and this is kind of it's not just me seeing this, but the discerning is if they're talking about aliens, this is a wild theory in regards to the rapture, and Christians are thinking of, are they going to use that alien thing as a means for deception? And if they are, does that mean then there's going to be Christians are staying here, and then they're going to go through the Great Tribulation? You know what I'm saying? So, because I believe that there is going to be Christians staying there, Great Tribulation. Revelation talks about what the church is. I'm going to keep them from the hour that's coming.
That was Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's coming upon the whole world. So it makes me think, there's a lot of connections, especially what we're seeing. That film giving so, but it makes sense. So,
dude, you're right on target, man. And if you guys are tracking with them, that is exactly what's getting set up right now to explain away supernatural activity. Let's go first back to Genesis 6. Let's deal with the Nephilim, and then let's bring it into today. So if you're familiar with Genesis 6, chapter 6, 1 through 4, talks about a situation. It's one of the big issues that happened in the Old Testament when some angels, fallen angels under Satan's leadership, decided to corrupt the genetic code of humans. And the main reason they were doing this is because they knew the promise that God made to Eve that the seed of the woman will one day destroy or crush the head of the serpent. And so if Satan in his thinking thought, well, if he's going to be human, I'll destroy that. And so what ended up happening in Genesis 6, if you're familiar with it, like he's pointing out, is the fallen angels decided to interbreed with human women. And it created, like he talked about, Nephilim. And Nephilim in Hebrew means fallen ones. And the reason they were given fallen ones is because there's no salvation for these hybrids. They were hybrid creatures. And you guys, when you were in high school, do you remember that you studied like Greek mythology and you studied even other mythologies, Roman mythology, and you had Zeus and Poseidon and Venus and Cupid and all these. And then you had these weird minotaurs and centaurs. There's an element of truth in that. In fact, most ancient cultures, Aztecs, Mayans, Egypt, Celtics, all over the world have these ancient myth stories where there were demigods, where there were half animal, half human, had supernatural power like Hercules and things of that nature. Well, what you start realizing is there's an element of truth in all these ancient cultures that they are talking about what happened in Genesis. And it created a hybrid situation. So they weren't demigods. They were basically half angel and half human. But they had the supernatural powers that angels had and intelligence and all this other stuff. Well, let me take a little bit further. If you go to Second Temple literature that was around in Jesus' day, and what did the Jews understand? Well, they understood that the First Enoch, and First Enoch is not biblical, but it is historical. And when you look at First Enoch, it gives a little bit more information about what was happening. So here's the information. Again, I'm not saying it's biblical. I'm just saying this is the background information. So these angels that decided to do this, Satan convinced them to do this. There was about 200 of them, according to First Enoch. And they decided that, okay, let's interbreed with the humans and let's mess up the line of the Messiah. And what they started doing is, in order to get these daughters of men to copulate with them, is they traded information to their fathers. That's what First Enoch says. And so they were given technology. They were given how to do magic with roots and plants. And the kinds of plants like psychedelics that people use today, they were doing that because that tapped them into the occult world. They taught them how to get into the occult world, how to make contact with that. And so when you see the most popular program right now is Ancient Aliens, just like you're mentioning, because they'll talk about, well, where do these people in the ancient world get this technology? You understand that some of the technology we can't even duplicate today. We are not at that level, but yet in the ancient world, they have that ability. Where did they get it? Well, First Enoch says that the angels were giving them that kind of information. Fallen angels, not good angels, fallen angels. And they were trading that information and sorcery. And that's where paganism comes from. That's where witchcraft comes from, and the occult, and how to tap into that world. And so everything's going berserk, man. And that is one of the main reasons for Noah's flood, because it got so bad the genetic code was getting tampered with on humans and animals. Because notice in Noah's flood, remember that God sent the animals that were still pure to Noah. And the other animals died because what was happening is that you had a hybrid situation, and the animals were even tainted with this. So anyway, my point is they were given secret information. A hybrid situation was going on, and it was coming from fallen angels. Okay. So let's bring it to today. Well, the same occurrence is starting to happen, not producing hybrids. There's a variation of that, the transgender movement and transhumanism movement, not the same as Genesis 6. But what is said, the saying is the fact that fallen angels have now really been putting themselves out there as far as being visible. And it's been happening, guess what, since the mid 40s or even late 40s, 1948, 1947. And you think, why? Why does all of a sudden we're starting to see things in the skies? And everyone that sees something in the sky doesn't mean they're seeing a UFO. But there are legitimate things that we're seeing. In fact, our U.S. Navy is picking these things up on radar, right? And our pilots are interacting with these things, okay? And they're saying they're aliens or whatever. But the problem is they're not aliens. They're fallen angels. And fallen angels can manifest physicality in our world and can appear as anything you want. Fallen angels and demons are shapeshifters. That means they can take on any shape physically they want to. If they want to look like a goblin, they can look like a goblin. If they want to look like an angel of light, they can look like an angel of light. If they want to look like an animal, they can look like an animal. They're shapeshifters. So what they're doing right now is appearing to us in the form that makes us most afraid. And the form that makes our world the most afraid is the alien thing. The fact that you go back in the ancient cultures, like in the Middle Ages, how did fallen angels and demons appear to people? Well, they appeared to them as trolls. And we're getting ready to people are going to celebrate Halloween. But what was behind Halloween? They were doing Halloween to thwart the bad spirits. Trolls, witches, goblins, all those mythical creatures that's what seared that culture in those days. And so that's how demons manifested and that's how fallen angels manifest. Well, today, that is to steer our population. So what steers our population? Creatures from another galaxy that have advanced technology that can harm us. That's what steers the modern world. So now they're appearing as such. And they've been hearing a lot, by the way. And again, going on our radar. And then the Pentagon comes out in 2017 and says, yeah, we know all about this. And then you have even the Pentagon and people that have worked for the Pentagon saying, yes, when we have supposed craft and we have been able to reverse engineer some of these things. And so now the United States that in Black Ops says that they have the ability to have vehicles that are anti-gravity. And you're like, where did they get that from? Where did they get this technology? So why you're hitting on a good point. Why since the 40s has this been happening? Something happened in 1948 that was a huge prophetic marker. You know what that is? Israel returned back as being a nation again in 1948. Dude, when you see that happen, that was one of the big prophecies that we were waiting for like 2,000 years. God had said it. He's going to regather Israel in the last days. And he did. And it's a sign that all Christians see. We all understand that. And it means that you're living in the last days and God is getting ready to work again with the nation of Israel. And he is. But what did the demons know? And fallen angels, they know full well what that means too. It means their time is short. And it means they got to get busy. Because they know what the book of Revelation says, what Daniel says, just as good as you and I do. And they know how the thing's going to play out. So guess what they have to do? They have to create a false narrative. Because what is going to happen? You're going to have the rapture. You have the disappearance of Bible-lit Christians taken to heaven as promised. How are they going to explain that away? Well, I can already tell you how they're going to explain it away. There are people who are necromancers, or we call them psychics or mediums. And, sometimes they're at the Kern County Fair, but, there's people that do this for a profession, and really they're channeling demons. So there's a great book, if you're interested, by Trent Missler that came out in the 90s. It's called Alien Invasion. Anyway, he recorded what these necromancers were saying. And of course, they didn't think they were channeling demons. They thought they were channeling people from the future or avatars or, some higher being or alien or whatever. And here's what the demons were saying. Check this out. This is crazy. They said, eventually there's going to be the disappearance of 2 billion people. And what this is aliens taking them from this earth because they're holding back Mother Earth's evolution. That's what they said, okay? Follow this demon logic, okay? This is what they're channeling. And they said, it's these people that have really stopped the spiritual progression of Gaia or Mother Earth and holding everybody back spiritually. And so these are the bad people. And so what are the aliens going to do? Well, they're going to beam them up and they're going to disappear. But don't worry, they're going to take them to another planet and re-educate them. Dead serious. This is what they've said. Channeling demons. Okay, so you can see the false narrative being built up here, right? So we're going to take the bad people away. They're going to be beamed up in smaller ships. And then the other ships are going to give them to the mothership and take them to another planet. Then they said there's a second phase. The second phase is when children disappear. The fallen angels pretending to be aliens said, yeah, and don't be surprised when the children are taken away. The children are going to be taken away, and we're going to use them to repopulate other planets and create another, human race on another planet. But don't be afraid, don't cry, or be sad for them because they're being used for a greater purpose, and they're going to be used in that sense. Now, question. Let me stop there. Why do you think they added the children to it? Because here's the thing. Until a child reaches the age of accountability, and we don't know what that age of accountability is where God holds the person responsible. Maybe it's 8, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 12. We don't know. But God knows when that child is responsible, when they know things. We know that babies and children would be raptured. That's what God would do. He would take them home with them. He would not let them go through the tribulation period because they're innocent. They don't know anything. They haven't committed sin knowingly. That's what God holds people accountable is when they knowingly do things. And so they're unaccountable. So they would be raptured. So isn't it interesting that the fallen angels had a story about the disappearance of children? So this is all chronicled in the things they say. And they continue to say, if you talk to a new ager, someone that's in the new age, this is part and parcel their mentality. They believe aliens are going to take them. Aliens put us here. Aliens were our creators, and that they're going to now save the planet from the bad people. So guess who the bad people are? Christians. So the Christians are the bad people. So you see, this whole narrative has been flipped. Now, let's go to the book of Revelation. I'm not belaboring this, but if I looked at the whole book of Revelation and I see all the supernatural events that are going to happen in the future that God's bringing to this earth, what if I just saw it from a purely secular standpoint and I didn't see supernatural God's power? I could see the tribulation as alien invasion, and that all the supernatural things that are happening are advanced technology destroying our planet. The water turning to blood, earthquakes, cosmic disturbances. They could easily say these are all coming from aliens, and we're under alien attack. Now, in Revelation 9, the veil between the physical and the spiritual is removed. And in Revelation 9, guess what? Demon locusts are allowed to start attacking people, and they physically can see them. You can see the description in Revelation 9, and then 200 million demons are released, and they go and attack and kill a third of humanity at that time. So they're not going to say these are demons or fallen angels. They're going to say, oh, these are aliens or hybrids, Nephilim or whatever it is. And that's what we're under attack. And so the Yeshua, they'll think, will be their savior. It won't be Jesus, they'll say. It'll be the Antichrist. It's the Antichrist that'll save us. Now, one more thing to add to this. Remember I said in First Enoch, it talked about that these fallen angels were given high technology to human beings. And they were coming up with advanced technology that we had never seen before. Interesting enough, I'll give you another glimpse of this. I'm going to interview a guy that works on Noah's Ark in Turkey right now. Noah's Ark is in Turkey. They've already found it. And he works right there at the site where Noah's Ark is found. Noah's Ark, the technology on it is the same matching of what Genesis says about the ark. It's same size, everything is amazing. But they have done studies on it, and they found rivets that Noah used in the ark. Now, here's the interesting thing. They found titanium in the rivets. And you think, what's the big deal about that? We didn't discover titanium until like 150 years ago. And yet, Noah's Ark has titanium in it. Where did they get the technology for that? It shows you that even pre-flood, they had such advanced technology way beyond ours that we have no idea. Noah's Ark, the size and shape of it is unsinkable the way he designed it. And obviously God gave him some of the measurements, but he didn't give him all the measurements. And you talk to anyone that's been in the Navy, anyone that's been in shipbuilding, they say that design is unsinkable from a technological standpoint. Where did they get this technology? Okay. Noah obviously had the technology of his day, and he didn't get it from fallen angels, but that's where it's coming from, okay? Now let me come to today. The guys in Silicon Valley that are designing a lot of the internet stuff, the AI, all this other stuff that you're seeing, advanced technology, right? So advanced, it's going to get away from them. They cannot control AI. Eventually, AI will reach a point where it's thinking on its own. They've already had problems with AI and not being able to shut it down. It already created its own language, and it was communicating with other AIs. It's a major problem. And they're creating monsters that they can't control. But here's the thing, where did they get the technology ideas from? Because it's just recently come in the last 15, 20 years. We'd advance. Here's what they say. The guys in Silicon Valley are doing psychedelics. They're doing mushrooms, and they're going into an altered state of consciousness. So guess what ends up happening in that world? You enter the spiritual realm. And when you're in the spiritual realm, guess what these guys are coming in contact with? Other beings. And these beings, as you and I know, are fallen angels and demons, but they think they're avatars. They think there's people from the future, and they're downloading information to them. So what they're telling them is like, they're saying that these creatures will just download information into their brain, and then they go and implement it as far as technology. You guys are aware of Apple, right? I have an Apple phone. Do you have an Apple phone? Maybe you don't. Maybe you do. But you're aware of Macintosh. You're aware of Steve Jobs, who created Apple, aren't you? Everyone should be. You know what gave him the idea to create Apple or Macintosh? He said he was having in dreams where beings would come to him and give him information of how to develop Apple or Macintosh. And then what he would do is go into the office the next day and implement them and create Apple, create Macintosh. That's what he admitted. Now, Steve Jobs is not a believer. I think he was a boots or something like that, right? But he was getting downloads of information and he was implying them. What's the symbol? I don't have my, do you know what the symbol is for Apple? It's an apple with a bite out of it. And why is that? It goes back to Genesis. It's the forbidden fruit that Eve and Adam took a bite out of. It's not a mistake that Steve Jobs made that his icon for Apple. It was the forbidden fruit. He was introduced to technology. So anyway, long story short, that's an answer to that, Mo. So great question. Great question. You're thinking, brother. Anyway, go ahead. You have a follow up.
Oh, go, yeah, just go ahead, but yeah, I'll fall back. So, like, I was thinking, so this goes back talking about Nephilim again. So, like, I know, like, I agree with you, right? Nephilim is like half demon, half human. But I'm thinking to myself, what if the flood killed everything, right? Does that mean that then it only killed like the half human, but their spirit, the demon part of them, yeah, it's still roaming the earth? Because that would make a lot of sense. Dude, your car's all over this. As far as like why I'm still, because they're the giants, right? Because even Moses' time they saw giants, and then they came back. But that's my thing. Like, so does that mean that the Nephilim survived it?
No, what ends up happening, they were all killed, but you're absolutely right. That's the difference between an angel, a fallen angel, and a demon. A demon is a disembodied spirit from a Nephilim. And so that's why it's different. That's why demons want to possess. It's because now they had a body at one time. They were Nephilims. And now they're disembodied because they were killed physically, but they're spiritless and they're a demon. That's what we call demon. They're different. Fallen angels do not want to possess. That's not their gig. They can manifest the body. It's demons that want to possess. Demons, by the way, hate water. Why is that? Because they were killed by water. So when Legion met Jesus, and Jesus goes, who are you? And he goes, real Legion. And they are, you come to torments before the appointed time, Son of God. And then what did Jesus do? They requested to go into the pigs rather than into the pit. So he sent them into the pigs, but as a penalty, what did he do? He allowed the pigs to drive them off into the Sea of Galilee, into the water, which they hate. They hate water. And he said, demons look for arid places and deserts because they hate water. Now, fallen angels have no problem with water. That's why you'll see fallen angels go in and out of the water with our Navy. But demons don't. Okay, so you get down to the point. What happened? It happened again. So if you read Genesis 6:1-4, it says, and afterwards it happened again, and happened in the command of Canaan to prevent Israel from coming in. So by the time Joshua gets in there, he's dealing with giant clans. Okay, here's the interesting thing. A lot of people don't know how to answer this. There's some times when Joshua's going into the land and God says, I want you to kill everybody. Men, women, children, animals, and then burn everything. Do not take anything from that area. Now, he'll only do it to selective tribes. In other situations, he'll say, drive them out. But then when God says, harem them, totally wipe them out. Why? Because they were hybrids. They were not fully human. And that explains the harem on certain villages because they were dealing with giants. Goliath had 4 brothers, and David's dealing with Goliath. Goliath's hybrid. He's a Nephilim. And he was 9 feet tall or something like that? Okay, now here's the question. The penalty for that is any angel that does that is put into Tartarus until the great white throne judgment. So we don't see that today. But we do have a hint that there might be one more coming. One. We do have a hint. And who do you think that might be? It's the Antichrist. The Antichrist might be a full-fledged Nephilim. How do we get that? Because he's the seed of the serpent. And that's singular in Genesis. And he is killed, but then he resurrects from the Abuso, the pit. Now, what's the big deal about that? Humans, when they go to hell, they go to the bottomless pit. But humans do not go to the Abuso, the pit. Only fallen angels go to the pit. And yet he resurrects from the pit, and yet he's called the seed of Satan. So some clues there that we might see one more final Nephilim, and it could be the Antichrist. Possible. Okay. Now I think I just lost that. But good question. You're thinking, dude, you're all over that, man. Okay, where are we at? Yeah, go for it, Jet. What was it?
Hey, Brandon, my name is Matt.
Yeah.
If you might background before asking my question.
Right.
So every Monday, I always visit my berries. So I always have these conversations every Monday. I always talk about work, everything. So my background is I work in law enforcement for 3 years. But the conversation I never really would want to tell them is during my first 2 years, I heard 3 separate evasions. That's been put out from work for 2 weeks. But then when my parents were asking, like, oh, when you working? I just told them, like, oh, I'm on vacation. But I just don't ever want them to worry about me.
Yeah.
The things I do at work, I love it. I love what I do. But my question is, do I continue to not tell them the truth?
So let me ask you this: why would you keep that from them? Are you just afraid that they're get too worried about you, or what?
I just don't want them to worry about me at all. Yeah. The only folks that knows it is just my sister. That's just all.
And so you're getting hurt at a job that basically you don't want to tell them that. Okay. So my thing is you never go wrong with being honest. Okay, so you always want to be truthful. There's sometimes you want to keep things from some people. You don't want to disclose it. And there are times when but if this is going to be ongoing, you're better off, you're going to have to reveal that if it's going to be ongoing. If it's like a one-time thing, then yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it's just a lot of time, bro.
Okay.
Seem to be separate occasions.
Okay. But if you can, here's what I would say. There's sometimes you want to protect people from things. And I get that. And so telling the truth doesn't always mean you disclose everything, you vomit everything. There's things you got to understand, maybe my parents can't take it or somebody. And so I'll tell them a little bit or whatever, but I don't disclose everything. But I would say this, Jose, if it continues to happen, the excuse of I'm on vacation and go work eventually, the cat's going to come out of a bat. Now, 1 or 2 times, you can keep that from them. And again, you're not trying to be deceitful. You're just trying to not disclose, I don't want them to worry about me and stuff like that. But I would say this, going forward, if it happens multiple times again and you're like, hey, man, you're going to have to tell them. And then, eventually, if you get married, you're going to have to tell your spouse what's going on because, adding, and you're going to have kids and they're going to worry about you. But here's the thing. Why would it benefit somebody to know that that's happening to you from a psychological, mental standpoint? I'll explain why. People can handle more if you tell them what's going on versus when it comes out of left field. I'm getting feedback. Let me explain this. When someone gets into a car accident and they get the phone call, hey, your son or daughter has been in an accident and it's really hard and they may not survive. It traumatizes people versus you being told that your grandfather has cancer. He's got maybe 3 years to live. And then what happens there is you actually can mentally prepare for that versus when it comes out of left field. So eventually, as a father, what you have to do is prepare people mentally that you could be hurt. You're in law enforcement. You're risking your life. And even eventually the person you marry, she's going to have to realize, hey, this guy can get shot. This guy can get beat up or something. Because you're going to have to mentally prepare them for that. So right now, you can get away with it, but you're better off eventually mentally preparing people because let's pretend another thing happens and all of a sudden you're in a coma and you can't talk and you're in the hospital. I'm like, well, what happened to him? I didn't know this was going on. It'll be worse psychologically for your parents because he'll come out of left field versus he's had trouble before. Yeah. And this is a risk he takes. And so it actually creates a more expectation and they can handle it better. So I would tell you on that point, from a psychological, it's better to prepare people for what's coming. I'll give you an example, a simple example. If any of you guys go and have surgery, your doctor's going to say, he's going to come in the office and he's going to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. we're going to do this. And then after that, I'm going to do that. And then after this, I'm going to do that. And it's going to take you 5 days to recover. And it's going to do, and why does the doctor tell you that? Because he's preparing you mentally for what to expect. And they find out that when you tell somebody before they have surgery that this is what we're going to do, they actually can handle it better. Versus not tell them anything. So more information is better than less information. In any relationship, by the way, more information is better. The more people know, the more they can actually handle it. I'll give you another example. How has God prepared Israel to come into the promised land about what's going to happen? He tells them, when you get into the land, here's what's going to go down. You're going to stop this. He talks about sexual immorality. He talks about the paganism. You're going to encounter all of this. And what is that? This is important for all of you that are going to have kids. Do not make the mistake of hiding what's going on in the world from your kids. The best thing that you see God do is he tells them, this is there, that's there, that's there, that's there. And what is God doing? He's preparing them. So how do you prepare your kids? Do not put them in a bubble. Do not say, well, I'm going to shield them from everything and I'm not going to tell them how bad the world is. No. Do the opposite. Say the world is really bad and here's what's going on. And you know what? Kids who know that information handle it way better. Because then think about this. I've seen parents raise kids. They put them in a bubble and then they get to be 18 and then they unleash them. And guess what happens? They're like, I didn't know everyone's this mean. I didn't know everyone's this evil. What? And you're like naive. And they're being conned. And it's like, well, haven't you been on the playground? Don't you understand that there's a lot of people you shouldn't trust? I didn't know people were like that. And like throwing full bulls. Don't do that. Information to perfect. Anyway, good question. It's awesome, was it? Yeah, we're going.
I had a question on the Sunday too.
Okay. Yeah, you too?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, dig into that.
What's your question, my bad?
It's seldom talked about from this shoot, man. I actually just learned about it not so long ago. All my life in church. It has barely passed by.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? So many topics like that, people don't want to talk about because God, you get makes them uncomfortable. So let me read that for you guys real quick. God stands in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods. How long will you judge unjustly, show partiality to the wicked, defend the poor fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and the needy, deliver the poor needy, free them from the hand of the wicked? Who's he talking to? He's talking to the judges among the gods. They do not know, nor do they understand. They walk about in darkness, all foundations of the earth are unstable. I said you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But you and I, like men, fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge you, for you shall inherit all nations. Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to shoot this.
Go ahead.
So this is a book from someone who passed away. He is
Michael Heisner, right, sir? Yeah, I love Michael. Yes, sir. It's great. So you been reading about the divine counts?
yes.
Awesome. Let's talk about it, man. Totally. I love it. So Michael Heisner, he has passed away. He, great theologian, and I'm glad you're reading him. Good for you. This is highbrow stuff, man. Why'd you get your hand on that, man?
Kid brushes and videos. That's a lot.
Michael's fantastic. I love Mike.
Yeah, I think I learned he passed away too early.
Yeah. So, if you guys are interested, Mike Heisner really brings out a lot of what was going on in the Old Testament, especially we talked about the Nephilim and they know that age, but the divine counsel. So what you're seeing in Psalm 82 is what's called the divine counsel. And this goes back to the Deuteronomy 32 mindset. Michael Heisner was real big on that and made that very, very pronounced. And a lot of theologians don't want to talk about it because he gets uncomfortable. Okay, let's talk about that. What do you mean? the term Elohim in the Bible can refer to God. And when it refers to God, it's a plural being used as a singular. But in other times, spirit creatures are called Elohims as well. So it talks about the gods. When you see the word the gods in Hebrew, it's Elohim, which means plural, gods. So the spirit creatures that God made, we call them angels, but that's probably not the right vernacular for them. The right vernacular is called them Elohims or gods. It doesn't mean they're God ontologically, like God is, but that they're spirit creatures from that spiritual realm. There's seraphim, there's cherubim, there's messengers, there's different categories, right? But they're called Elohims. Okay. So, according to what Michael Heiser is saying in Psalm 82, it seems to be indicating, and I agree with Michael Heiser, that at the Tower of Babel, and if you read it, that God scattered the nations at the Tower of Babel. Also, Deuteronomy 32 will say that he divided up the world according to, and the mistranslation is the sons of Israel. Well, if it was those sons of Israel during the Tower of Babel. The correct translation comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is Banat Elohim, the sons of God. And so what God did at the Tower of Babel is he divided the nations according to the language, right? But then assigned them these Elohims that were over those nations to govern them, okay? As an under-ruler under God. Now, that's not hard to understand, that God has hierarchies, and he basically put these individual nations under that. And so what Michael Heister says, and what Psalm 82 says when you're reading it, is that they corrupted their rulership over those nations. And instead of doing the right things, as God's trying to point out, they didn't do the right things, and they misled them and led them down the wrong path. And so they're going to be judged for that. And so, again, that's more of a Deuteronomy 32 mindset. You have to understand that it goes with the Tower of Babel. But, look, more evidence that there are rulerships, not only under God, but even under Satan, is Daniel chapter 10, where you see that Daniel is praying and Gabriel's trying to get to him, and he's delayed 21 days. And why? Because a spirit creature called the Prince of Persia is holding him back. So he finally breaks free and gets the message to Daniel, says, I'm going back and I got to go throw down again. And now it's going to be the Prince of Greece. And Michael is the only one that's helping me out on this. So what is that? So these divine creatures that God created, we call them angels, even the ones under Satan have principalities and rulership, and they're over certain territories, over certain nations. What is the angel, the good angel that's over Israel? Do you want to know? It's Michael. Michael is the prince over Israel. That's his nation that he's assigned to. Does the United States have a nation an angel assigned to them? Yeah, we don't know who it is, but we do. And all the nations do. But the opposite is true. Satan has his guys over nations as well to corrupt them. And so you have this ongoing battle going back and forth with all of that. So, I'm glad you brought it up because it's something everyone needs to be aware of. This is what we call the cosmic order. And then one of the things that part comes down to that, and Michael Heisner will bring out, is cosmic territory. That you need to be aware that these creatures that God created on the bad side, they have certain territories they're over. And God has his as well. So there's this battle. Now, I talked to people that have been in Satanism. And, they've been in occultism and different things of that nature. And here's what they indicate. They say it's true. What you're saying, or what even Michael Heiser is saying, is true. We know that. We saw it. And in fact, that when a lot of times people have been involved in the occult, the veil between the physical realm and the spiritual realm is kind of thin. And here's what they say. They say that when they enter into different cities, they can see these spirit creatures over the territories. At least that's what they say from coming from Satanism. And yeah, that sometimes happens. They can see things. And I'm glad I don't see them because I think I would freak out. I think it would, if I start seeing all that. But when someone's been involved in Satanism that deep in the occult, they are highly sensitive to that, and they see those things. I'm glad I don't. But anyway, good point. That's the divine counsel. And look, here's the end result. Eventually, God is exalting us in Christ above the angels. Did you know that? You're going to be above the angels. We're made a little lower than the angels, but one day we're going to be exalted above the angels, and we will be part of the divine council. Now, what do you mean? Well, the divine council, you can see it in Revelation 4 and 5 with the 24 elders. The 24 elders are around the throne. That's the divine council. But who are the 24 elders? The 24 elders is the church. It's us. And so at one point, when we're after the rapture and we're in heaven and everything, the divine council will include humans. Now, again, God doesn't need us. There's no, he doesn't need anybody. He doesn't need angels. But what he's doing is he's inviting us to be part of his family, to rule and reign. That's what the whole purpose is, to rule and reign with him. He invites us to do that. Yeah, Bo, go ahead. Do what now? Yeah, you will be. And Paul said it. We're going to judge the angels as well. So we get that divine council status. So I'm glad you picked it up. I'm glad you're reading that. I'm sad that he died. I wish Michael was still with us. But you guys said, if you watch his videos, you will learn a lot about the supernatural. His book on angels and demons and the supernatural, phenomenal. It's absolute phenomenal, man. I love it. Okay. Get this back to you, my friend. Good point.
And Jeremiah, question here.
So my question really based on, the theology part and Isaac Norland personally.
That's fine.
So just a little context. This has probably been the worst year of my life.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Started off bad, got worse, and then ended up horribly. And my thing is, a little bit more context is, I was actually in the military, got broken up with, crashed my car. But before that, right, I thought it was good,
Yeah.
And I noticed recently I had some change. And I am a little scared. I don't really know exactly where things are going to go because, like I just stated before, life was good. And I'm really scared of this thing go back down again.
Okay.
So when I got back to Bakersfield, I got back March 22nd. Immediately went straight down. Like back relapse. I relapsed, started doing drugs again, drinking is been bad. Anybody that knows me in here, I'm pretty sure I've spilled my, testimony and everything. And I noticed this change recently that I don't necessarily struggle with the same thing that I was struggling with just 2 months ago when I'm sober. But I struggle, or like, how do I explain that? That whenever I'm sober, it doesn't bother me. But so yeah, I got broken up with, right, and I was struggling really bad. That kind of sent me in a downward spiral. It sparked up everything that I just said, right? And I would drink, and then that's what made like more fuel to the fire, right? And it all originally started when I was sober, but now that I've been sobered, I don't really I don't crash out anymore. I don't think about it. I don't, but the second that I have like that urge, like, oh, I had a long day at work construction, I'll drink the beer. Everything just becomes flooded. And now like I one step forward, like 11 steps back, but I've eliminated the alcohol. And now I feel like imagine you're driving, like, the car's going to blow up in like 5 minutes. That's how I'm feeling right now. But I also know that I can make it not blow up. But you know what I'm saying? I'm really stuck and I'm really scared because everything has been going great. I got a raise. I got any vehicles. I've been able to read the Bible a little bit more than I used to. I had this sense of peace. I feel like God is with me, but I'm really scared that, because I had this from before, I'm really scared that, I'm going to relapse again, or that I'm going to, and I just, as somebody who is, invest in God, and, has had, I don't think call you old, life is,
Ma'am, you all grief.
it's like, and it's crazy that I saw, I saw it from you. He posted on the story, and I was like, pretty much, I've been like, really, like, I don't really talk that much to people about it. And I figured, who else to talk to? Yeah, I've been to a couple of your services, and was like, what would you, I know that I'm probably not explaining it that, but what would you say to somebody, to me, for anybody else that is going to that?
Yeah, sure. I think what the thing is you have to go back to your root issues, because that's where the rot is. So if you go back to drinking or anything that sets you back in there, and you're just like, okay, I can relapse, and then all that comes back is telling you that it's still there in your soul. It's still there in your core. So yeah, when things go great and you're getting your raise and this is going well, you will tend to bury that because things are going well. But the alcohol, believe it or not, or when you're relapsing, is revealing that it's still there as a root. And so it hasn't left. Because if you feel like, hey man, if I do another drink, it come back, or I can relapse or whatever, that tells me you're not past it. That what ends up happening to a lot of us, things happen to us. We lose things. We lose careers. We lose relationships. We lose reputation, whatever it might be. And that becomes a wound. And the wound is there. But we can pretend that, well, it's not there. I'll cover it up, sweep it under the carpet, and I'll just move on and be positive. The problem is you can be positive, but it's still a wound. And the wound has to get healed. So going back, what I would say is, we have some wounds inside of you that probably need to be healed. And, obviously we can't deal with it all tonight, but I would say it's still there. And if it's not dealt with, it eventually, the root grows and it sprouts and branches start coming out and fruit starts coming out. And you're like, I don't understand why I'm doing this odd behavior. I don't understand why I do this. I don't understand why I do that. Oh, it's because you have a root inside. So here's the mistake people will do. They'll just start cutting branches off and fruit. So the branch would be drinking. I'm not drinking, Brad. Okay, but here's the thing. The drinking is not the root. It's the fruit of the root. So you can stop drinking, but unless the root's gone, I'll give you another example. You'll trade off for something else weird. So instead of drinking, people will gravitate to eating, or they'll gravitate to this, or they'll gravitate to that. But somebody just soothes the wound, the pain inside. But then we all experience pain. And I have, and in my life. And if we don't process that pain with truth, it will sting there and debilitate us. So you're a young guy, but you live with that root, it'll make you into something later that you do not want to be. So it's to your advantage to deal with that pain. Because what? If you don't, you're sabotaging your future self. You're not going to be able to be the potential that God wants you to be, because you will sabotage your own growth unless you deal with it. Now, the pain could be the pain of loss or whatever, or it could be anything. Look, I grew up with the pain of not having my parents together. They divorced, and I had to live with my dad, and that was painful. And the pain that it caused me, and I'll just give you an example for me, was that I must not be lovable enough. I must not be valuable enough for my parents to stay together. And so there's something lacking inside of me, and that caused me pain. Well, the way I covered up that pain is performance. So instead of just getting destructive and like hitting drugs, alcohol, I went into performance mode. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. I'll eat straight A's, and I'll do great in athletics, and I'll prove to them that I'm valuable. But that became destructive too, because that really wasn't the problem. And I was masking it. I was fronting with performance. And really what was happening is I was hurt inside. But what was the truth? The truth is I didn't have anything to do with my parents' divorce. That was on them, but I made it about me. I personalized it, that there must be something not valuable about me for why my parents would divorce. And I'm 11 years old, and that's what happens when you're 11. You just think it's your fault. And it caused me a pain. And the pain was this that I carried around. It's a false pain, but it was real pain. I'm not valuable enough. I'm worthless. I don't know I don't know what to do to get someone's love. I guess I'll just perform for them. And if I can perform enough, and maybe I can win someone's attention and love and get value from that. But that's fake. Because the real value that God taught me was, no, you don't understand, Brandon. You're valuable if you were a quadriplegic in a bed and couldn't do anything. I value you, Brandon, because you're made in my image and I died for you. Yeah, that took me 10 years to figure that one out. Okay, so you don't have to wait 10 years. But when I saw my real value from God, it freed me. Not instantaneously. It took me 10 years to figure that out. That's my hurt. But I'm telling you, what happens is people hurt you. Everyone's going to hurt you. You're going to get used to it. It's how you interpret the hurt. And then if you personalize it and you say, this is about me, there's something wrong with me, I'm defective, I'm messed up. I have women tell me that since they were teenagers, since they were your age, they feel messed up. They feel like, I'm damaged goods. You don't know what happened to me, Brandon. This happened to me and I'm damaged good. I'm no good for anybody. And they start feeling worthless. And that's the pain they start carrying around. So you can choose two things, Jeremiah, when you feel worthless and full of pain. I'll take the destructive route, or I'll take the performance route. I'll prove to you that I am good and valuable, or I will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're right. I'm no good. I am worthless. And so I will destroy myself. And people do that. Drugs, alcohol, sex. This go crazy off the wire. And so to you, Jeremiah, or anyone in here, you deal in pain. You got to resolve that pain and then get back with the truth. And it's always God's truth. God tells you who you are. And so, Jeremiah, I don't know all the pain, basically whether you and I can talk on a personal level, but whatever you interpreted your losses as, I guarantee there's probably a lie in there. And so what I had to do is figure out the lie, because the lie was controlling my life. And the lie was, you're no good. You're worthless. If you were any good and lovable, your parents would have said, yeah, that's a lie. Now, whether I put that in my own head or Satan put that in my head, that's what I believed for a long time, until I was like in my 20s. And dude, when you think you're not valuable and you think you're worthless, what he will drive you to do is insanity. You will get OCD. You will get all kinds of weird mental issues. No one had to tell me to practice. No one had to tell me to study. Because you know what? I was proving to them I'm valuable with my grades in athletics. But that was always up. And look, I wouldn't have ended up here as a pastor. I guarantee you, I would have went to earn $1 million. I would have went on the Wall Street. I would have been a stockbroker. And that's what I would just live for money. Because you know why? I wanted to prove to my parents I was valuable. So I would have that's the career path I would have taken. But then when God got a hold of it, he says, no, we're not doing that. And we're going to drop this performance thing. And the minute I brought that, I got onto his truth of, no, you're made in my image. I love you. You're valuable. I got something better for you. And it took me into a different career of doing this, which I never thought about doing. So Jeremiah, you like this. Think about this. If you or anyone in this room doesn't solve the lie problem or the pain inside of them, it will actually determine your career. It will determine who you marry, believe it or not. People will marry the wrong person because they got so much pain inside. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of ladies in this room, and I don't know their background. I don't know, but I know in counseling, I deal with ladies in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s or whatever. Guess what they tell me? They married to escape their home, to get away from mom and dad, because mom and dad were just horrible parents. And look, that's like 8% of people. They grew up with horrible parents, and they're like, I gotta get out of here. And you know what they think? They're escapists. I gotta find somebody, and I'll marry it, and that person will be the escape for me. And you know what happens? They end up marrying the wrong person. And then they're in a marriage for like the next 5 years. And I'm like, I really don't like this guy. And he's terrible, but I know why I did it. I did it because it was a way of getting out of the house. And it's a disaster. And then he had kids with them. And I went, oh no, that's Tarzan. I don't like this guy. But what did they do? They were doing it because of pain. The pain actually motivated them to do something wrong out of God's will. Yeah, go ahead.
So you're talking about, identifying pain and doing on that. I'm asking a question because I'm not too sure if I know the answer.
Okay.
I think that I do, but what would be, is it just God's truth? Is that like opening your eyes and really putting aside your emotions and the way that you feel about it and having a deep dive talk with God and allowing yourself to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're on to something. The first thing you have to do is identify whatever lie you believe about yourself. So here's how you do it. You go back to where the pain and the trauma is. Okay. Wherever this started. You lost your job. You lost a relationship. Maybe it's there. I don't know. Maybe it's earlier on in life. You identify where the trauma and the pain came from. Then you look at that and you say, is that pain and trauma, and did that cause me to believe any lies about me, about God, about people, and about reality? Okay? Because some people think like this. Why would God let this happen to me? Holy smokes. But yes, everyone said that, right? That's part of the thing. Okay, so what Satan wants to do this? Yeah, that's right, Jeremiah. Why will God? He must not love you. He must not really care for you. He must not really have your best intentions. And if you start thinking that way, you're going to go away from God instantaneously. And it's a lie. And everyone said, why would God let this happen? Well, the number one answer is free will. That's the truth. He doesn't get in the way of human beings' free will because he values relationship, just like you would value relationship. So if you're dating somebody, you want them to love you back, free will, right? But if you shut the gun to that and say, love me, it's yeah, I love you, right, cool. What relationship is that, right? You're like, that's ridiculous. Well, that's the same thing with free will, right? God's not ever going to go here again and say, love me. He's going to say, you have a contrary choice of whether you want to love me back or not. And you have the option not to love me back. But the liability in free will is people will do bad things to you. That's the liability. And will not violate that. Now, here's the thing. Someone usually causes the pain. Someone causes the pain. And here's for hence of happening, Jeremiah told us. We say, where in the world is the justice in this? I had an injustice thing happen to me, whether it was from my mom or my dad or the coach or the teacher or my girlfriend or my boyfriend, and that's not right. That's injustice. And here's what can happen. I want justice. I want justice. And there's what the pain is. Okay, you want justice. Okay. The problem is you're not going to see it in this life. And you're going to get mad at God. Where's the justice? I want them to pay for what they did to me. And the issue about this is forgiveness. That's the hard part. Is can you forgive the person who did the injustice? Now, they're not going to get away with it. The key is you're going to have to give that injustice over to God, and God will one day deal with it, whether it's in this life or the next. But he's going to say, you're going to trust in Jeremiah on the justice on this. I'll pay them back. but you're not trusting me all this time. So I need you to forgive that. Now, what does forgiveness mean? It means I'm not idea of the debt they owe me for what they did to me over to God and say, he can handle it. That's what forgiveness is. It's releasing the debt to him and knowing that one day he will bring justice to the situation. And at the same time, knowing, as Joseph said, they meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And you open yourself up to the possibility that God, can you bring good out of this? And he says, I can. I can bring good out of this if you'll let me work in you. But if you harbor bitterness and anger and unforgiveness, good will not come out of it. You will get worse. Because unforgiveness is like drinking poison. It's like you're just going to poison yourself. And you get worse. You get bitter and angry, and it changes you. But if you can give it over to God, and God's going to know us. They did wrong. But I thought people have been raped and molested and all kind of beat by their parents to death almost. And the thing that frees them from that is they have to forgive and move on. Doesn't mean you have to be friends. Doesn't mean you even have the relationship with them anymore. It just means you need to release the debt. And that frees you. And it frees you so that you can be who God wants you to be. So when you look at your trauma and pain, ask yourself, who caused this? Was it your parents? Was it your girlfriend? Who caused it? If you can name who that is, that's the person you need to forgive. So you can move on. And grief. And here's the thing, you need to grieve. We all need to grieve. Because here's the thing, when someone does something wrong to us, we lose something. We're losing. What do you mean? Well, I lost a relationship. I lost my family. My parents divorced. I lost my family. That's it. 11 o'clock. 11 years old. You didn't get him back. It's gone. It's gone. And so when someone does wrong, you realize you're going to lose something. You have to grieve that. But here's the good news about the grief. You grieve the loss of it, but knowing in the future you get everything back. What do you mean? In this life? No, not in this life. What Jesus promises you is this. The disciples said, we have left everything to follow you, man. Homes, family, jobs, everything. We've given it all to follow you. And Peter, thank God he said this that I'm not kind of curious about. He goes, what's in it for us? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad he said it because that's what I was thinking too. We give up everything for you. And he said, I'm going to tell you this. If you give a cup of cold water to one of my servants, you will get everything you have lost 100-fold back in the kingdom. I'll give everything back to you that you lost. Everything. 100-fold. 100. You lost your family, I'll give you a new family. You lost money, I'll give you. Don't worry about the riches. You're going to be walking the streets of gold. Don't worry about it. And here's an interesting thing. I've been studying near-death experiences for a while now. It's piqued my interest. And we'll get thousands and thousands and thousands of people reporting what their experience had the most. Guess what? Just what Jesus said, they get everything back. Everything. I'll give you an example. Some of these people, thousands of them, they lost relationships because people died. Well, guess who gets to meet them in heaven? They bought their brother, their sister, and they're doing great, and they get to have that reunion. And even their pets from when they were a kid. This one guy, he was bullied in school, he had no friends, and he would come home, and this dog just loved him to death. And that was his only friend in junior high was this dog. Everyone hated him, and this dog just loved him, and this dog died. And it was like a big tragedy for him. Well, this guy is an airline pilot now, and he has a near-death experience, and he dies. And he goes, and the first thing that Jesus brings him is that book. And he had this reunion with this dog, and he's crying and stuff, and they was the dog. Now, you understand, that thing was more than a dog. That was his buddy. Because no one liked him, and he was being bullied. And the first thing Jesus brought with him when he got to heaven is their shot. That's amazing. you get everything back. Everything you lose, you get back. And so when these people do wrong to you, yeah, but you're going to lose it. But Jesus is saying, I'm going to give it back to Jeremiah. Just trust me. And it will all be restored. I will redeem what the locusts have eaten, he says. But see, you're not going to get it right now. You got to wait. This one old guy, I'll give you another, but this is funny. So one old boy, he has a near-death experience. And he's in there, and this angel is showing him around. And of course, he meets his loved ones and his family members. But this guy was always pushy. He always carried a lot of weight with him because he was overeating all the time. So anyway, his favorite thing was vanilla ice cream. Okay. So guess what the angel gives him? Gives him vanilla ice cream. And it doesn't melt. This ice cream doesn't melt in heaven. And he starts eating it. And he said, the good news about this, the angel told him, he goes, you're gaining weight from eating here. And so the guy was eating the ice cream like there was no tomorrow. But that was his near-death experience. One of the things. But just the fact that, yeah, we have problems with our bodies. We had health issues and everything. We got all these stuff going on. The older you get, the worse. But we get everything restored back. Get everything restored. Well, that gives me the ability to grieve. So then when I lose something in this life, I'm like, all right, fun. I'll get it back. I didn't lose anything. Well, that gives me the ability to be free. Well, holy smokes. That brings healing to me. So I lost my family. I'm not getting it back. I lost half my childhood. It wasn't normal. But he's already promised, don't worry, Randy, 100 times over, you're going to get your childhood back. You're going to get to play like you should have played. Because I had to grow up too fast. And maybe you probably did too. You had to grow up too fast. And all of a sudden, you're like this 12-year-old adult because you're taking care of yourself. And there's no one else watching out for you to take your lunch to school if you miss it. So you had to grow up. But one day, I'm going to get my childhood back. I'm going to be free of responsibility. I'm going to be able to run with, in the fields with Jesus and do things that I should have done as a kid. I'll get my childhood back. And so will you, if you missed it. And loved ones and you lost too early, they're there. They're waiting for you. There's one guy who encountered this guy encountered his brother and seen his brother in 30 years. And saw his brother and they were out at a big reunion. And the brother that was in heaven that had died 30 years ago, he says, it's been 30 years? He says, it just feels like yesterday I just got here. And you're like, yeah, because that's how time is in heaven. It's in time without end. And he just said, when you've been there yesterday and you've been there 30 years, he didn't even realize it. But, the grand reunion with our family members that we've lost, the loved ones, they're there. They're waiting for you. If they need Jesus, obviously. So anyway, a lot of stories short, and I know it's been too long, but that's how we can forgive. Especially in losing anything. That makes sense.
Hey, we talked about the first time we had Q&A. We talked about equally yoked relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. I have a following one because I do see this a lot in this culture. And is this, how can we discern if we're truly ready for a relationship, especially when we still have unresolved insecurities or struggles? As believers, how important is my 3 questions? How important is it to be healed and whole before entering a partnership? And what are the red flags within ourselves that indicate we might not be ready yet?
Holy smokes. That's good. Yeah. Okay, here's the thing. We're a process. No one's going to be made whole before you get married, but we're a process. But here's the thing you want to know before you get married. Do I know what my issues are? And do I know what the person's issues are not marrying? Because here's what you don't want. If you go in blind into a relationship and say, I'm going to get married to this person, and you don't know your baggage, and you don't know the other person's baggage, you're going to bring that baggage into the marriage, and here's what happens. It'll be a disaster, because here's what happens. You want to marry someone that will complement you. but not complete you. That's a mistake. Now, here's what happens. People have deficits because they had unresolved issues. And those unresolved issues actually match other people's unresolved issues. What do you mean? Let me explain. If you're starting to develop codependency, which means that I need to be needed, Brandon, and my parents make me feel valuable, but when I do things for others, it makes me feel needed. And when people depend on me for things and I've been makes me feel needed. Okay, great. It could be development of codependency. I need to be needed. Okay. It's almost a guarantee that a codependent person will marry an addict. And why is that? Because the addict is a project. The addict needs somebody to bail them out. There's always an enabler behind an addict. And, if it's not their parents, it'll be their spouse. And so what I find in counseling, which goes hand in hand, is behind codependency is the spouse that's an addict. And so they get married and they think, this is wonderful. This is great. We both complete each other. And it's like, no, you both have issues that are melting together that fit very well, but it's not a compliment. It's a problem. Because you do not want to marry an addict and you don't want to be a codependent. Okay. And those kinds of things. So again, it's not that we're perfect. It's that I know my background. I know my tendencies. I know I can be hey, I know I can be angry. I know I can be short. I know I can be OCD about certain things. I know I can be a control freak. Okay. Well, if you know that, be careful because that might link you to marry somebody that might match that problem. You know who controllers like? Controllers like irresponsible people. They like controlling the entire environment, but they don't want their spouse to control anything, so they marry a child, so to speak. So you have then a parent-child relationship or something like that, or a master-slave relationship in the marriage. Or how about this one? The biggie. You ready for the biggie? Men who have the Adam syndrome like to marry women who have the Eve syndrome. What is the Adam syndrome? It is the guy does not want to be the leader in the home. He likes the term leader, but he doesn't like the responsibility that it brings. Okay? What's the Eve syndrome? The Eve syndrome is, I want his position. I want to be in control. And so I will look for a guy who doesn't want to be in control. And then she dominates the relationship. Dude, that is like the number one problem in all my counseling. Is the guy's not in charge and the woman is. It's like hands down the number one problem. Now, here's the thing. Guys, I'll speak to you first. You have to be the leader. You have to step up. You have to lead your wife. You have to lead your family. Okay? But if you don't, and you're like, I'm not ready for the leadership thing. Do you know what will happen? You'll marry a girl who will control you for the rest of your life. That's a problem. And your house will go upside down and your kids will repeat it. So my thing is to you, a good question about this. Know your proclivities. Start morphine on them. And make sure your proclivity is not matching the other person's proclivities. But here's the thing. If you're dating somebody, you better get it all on the table. I'm just telling you right now, because if you come and say, Brandon, I'm going to marry to this guy and he's wonderful. And they'll say, here's the deal. We're going to go for premarital counseling. And for premarital counseling, we're going to have to vomit it all over stuff. What do you mean? I want it all to come out. What do you mean? Like all the stuff that you went through with what's your family life, because the in-laws are going to be a problem. What are the three things you're going to argue about in marriage? It's three things. Money, sex, and in-laws. That's what you're arguing about. That's your top three. money, sex, in-laws. And everything swirls around those three concepts. So why do I have the premarital couples vomit out their stuff? Because we're going to talk about sex, we're going to talk about your in-laws, and we're going to talk about money and how we're going to deal with this. Because if there's any problems and any hiccups in those three areas, they're going to come out in your marriage. Number one is sex. That's a problem. I thought we have freedom to have sex. Here's a weird thing. People get married and they don't want to have sex. Go figure. Duh. What's going on? You got a green light. I don't feel like doing it. Wait a second. The whole point of teenage, you guys were all charged up. We were all charged up to have sex, and we're trying to hold off, and we're we can't even control ourselves very much. And so, and then now we're putting a ring on the finger, and it's like, yeah, go for it now. Tater, chimp, let, wrist, go for it. You can do it now. I don't feel like it. I'm tired. I got a headache. What? And it's like, nothing happens. And so they come back in counseling and they're like, hey, we haven't had sex in 9 months. What? What do you blame me? You haven't had sex in 9 months. You're married, right? You like each other? I don't know. It's just like, oh my gosh. You know what happens is the devil will play tricks on you in your marriage. And that's why in premarital, you got to talk about sex and you got to talk about what's going on, because here's what's happening. And I think I mentioned this last time. If you're not bonded mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, here's what happens. You get married, the honeymoon lasts probably maybe 2 years. At tops, maybe a year. But in 2 years, you're good. Okay? The romance will last. And you're like, oh man, I'm so attracted to them. After 2 years, romance dies. Okay? And then reality hits. I married this person. And here's what ends up happening. How does the romance keep happening? Because you can connect mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. If you can connect all those, it keeps the fire going. It keeps the person attracted to you. Okay? But if you just get married on a physicality, you're not going to be attracted after 2 years. And that's how it works. So God is pretty smart. When you guys ever read the Song of Solomon, and you're all old enough to read it, by the way, because they didn't let Hebrew kids read this under 13. Read the Song of Solomon. It tells you how to hold yourself off until sex, until marriage, and then how to have proper sex in marriage, and how to keep the romance alive. And he goes over those things. That's where I'm pulling this information from. So when you're dating, back to him, I better be able to connect mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to a person. Or they want to say wavelength. And if not, ditch them. Get rid of them. Don't do it. Because I know they're attracted to you or handsome to you or something like that. But that's not enough. It's not enough. It won't keep you in the game. And so anyway, those are kind of my tips. But this is the stuff that's coming out of counseling. So anyway, good question. Where we at?
Okay. What does modesty look like for men and women? Both inwardly and outwardly, and what scriptures can we look back on?
So here's modesty in a nutshell. Whether you're a guy or whether you're a girl, modesty is to get you to draw the attention of someone else to your face. Okay? Whether you're a guy or a girl, you want people's attention here, not anywhere else. When you're immodest, the clothing you will wear will draw attention to your body. That's when you're knowing you're being immodest. Now, I'll give you some funny things about this. So, like when I go to Israel, the Orthodox are the women that are Orthodox. They have to cover up their entire body. Okay, but here's the loophole: how they get out of this. Their whole body is covered, but they'll be wearing the skin tight, what do they call it? The lycra?
The like,
They'll be wearing the lycra outfits. Okay? But what's the problem with that? Well, they're saying, well, I'm covered. I'm covered from neck to ankle and all the way to my wrist. You can't see anything, but it's all lycra. But yeah, that you're missing the point. We can still see the shape of your body. And that's a problem. Because it's like you're nude walking around in a black lycra. And again, so there's a fight going on in Israel among the Orthodox about their women dressing in lycra, but the women are saying, we're covered, we're modest. And he's like, look, you're not. You're showing your bodies off. And so, there's a whole fight going on there. But the issue then is, back to honesty. Even in that day, what you were supposed to do is dress in a way that garner attention to your face. That's what you teach your kids to do. If the Bible is not against looking good, it wants you to be well-groomed. It wants you, and here part of a modesty is dressing appropriately for the occasion. Okay. Now, what ends up happening is some people are immodest because they don't know how to dress appropriately to the occasion. They either overdress for the occasion or they underdress for the occasion. And that's also immodest as well. For instance, if you go to a wedding in flip-flops and shorts, you're an idiot. It's like, what are you doing? You're going to a wedding. You need to dress up for the wedding, right? But if you go to a funeral and you're wearing flip-flops and shorts, you're an idiot too, because that's not appropriate. So modesty is not even just about sexuality. It's about dressing appropriately. Now, here's the thing, what you're thinking of. When you put on your clothes, what are you thinking? You should be thinking about others. What do you mean? You're not attracting them, but I am dressing so that people are not distracted by me. That they don't even think about what I'm wearing. It's like I blend in. I'm gray. And all they're paying attention to is my face. So when you're dressing, you think, will this outfit stumble somebody? That's how you have to think. And that's how Paul says, you have to dress appropriately so you don't cause anyone to stumble. Now, like in his day, having, for women, having their hair unveiled, that was a big thing. Well, it's not that big a day. But you have to think in terms, okay, what am I doing with my clothing? Am I doing this because, well, I can dress any way I want, and if they lust after me, that's their own problem. You can't think like that. That's totally immature. You have to think, am I going to cause somebody to stumble over this? And that's the more mature method you have to take. Now, what does that look like? I don't know yet. That starts getting into details that's not even appropriate. Do I wear a skirt that's an inch above my knee, or it's 2 inches? That if you're being into that, then you're not understanding the concept. Whatever would cause someone to stumble, don't wear it. It could be stupid stuff or whatever. But it doesn't have to necessarily be seductive. So anyway, modesty, if it's just simply dressing appropriate for the occasion to not make people stumble. So good question. Right. What else do we got?
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I had a tia who was a witch in Mexico, and I had 3 tias who are able to sense people's energy. So my question is, how is that all of them have the same ability to sense people's energy? Because they say that they didn't do anything intentionally to gain those abilities. And do you think it can be relating to my tia being a witch?
Yeah, I think they're in Brujeria, right?
Yeah, in Mexico, yes.
Yeah,
The other 3 don't. They don't.
But they have those abilities, and they were not witches.
No.
But they're related to this farm gal?
Yeah, we're all
They're all related. Okay. But they have the extrasensory. Okay, that's weird. Okay. But if
One of them, recently we just talked to one of them. She says every time she walks into a room, she's Catholic, by the way.
Yeah.
She walks into a room, she walks into church, and she could just feel everyone's energy. And she even mentioned that to me and my sister and mom that she can't feel anything from us or from other people. She can, and that it just drains her, and that she also she doesn't know how to get rid of it, but that she also prays to God to help her and stuff like that. So it's just weird how all three will not be able to sense people's energy the moment they walk into a room.
And they're all late.
Yeah, rough. Yeah. The first two are first cousins, and one of them, the mom and dog.
Okay. So the entrance for this is the witch, whoever the witch is. Okay, that's the entry point. And so they're going to use that. Are they believers?
One of them, I think they are. I think they are believers because we talk about God and everything, and it seems like they are believers.
Okay. So what's going on here is the demons that are using the witch, their relationship with the witch has given the demons permission to attach themselves to them. I'm not saying they're possessed, but attach themselves. Because when they tell you they have extrasensory perceptions like that, that is not from God. That is a demon given them that kind of ability. And so that tells me they have demons attached to them, not possessing them. And so the entry point is the permission of the relationship. So what do? They have to break off the relationship with the witch, because that's what gives them the entry point. Now, what ends up happening is when I know this sounds bizarre, but demons and fallen angels work like lawyers, man. They are legalistic, and the way they work is by permission. And it's not like your relatives said, okay, do this to me. I give you. They don't have to do that. It's the act of being in relationship with the Brujeria, and or it could be an idol, it could be an image, it could be them doing something. So there's all kinds of ways that they can get permission. My guess is it's the witch. It's the relationship with the witch, and it's affecting them to where they're getting extrasensory perception. That's paranormal activity. Some people get like psychic ability, or they can tell something's going to happen before it happens, or they can actually have telepathy and stuff like that. And that seems to be, they can sense people's energies, right? Yeah. Energy is the big thing in the demonic realm. And so it tells me that somehow they have permission to do this to them. My thing is they're going to have to get away from the witch.
Well, because she passed away already.
Okay.
So that's where.
Okay, so the witch is dead.
Yeah.
Ding dong. You guys watch the Wizard of Oz, right? Ding dong, the witch is dead. Okay, but here's the thing. They still have permission to mess with them, even though she's dead. So what they have to do is renounce their relationship with her to God. And as simple as this, I renounce that relationship that opened me up to demonic influence in the name of Jesus Christ and under his blood. In Jesus' name, amen. And they have to do it out loud because the demons have to hear it. And that's how they formally break the covenant. So if you can get them to do that, tell them to do that. But here's the thing. They may not go away in some things. And they say, well, it's still here. Keep doing it. And then they're going to say, how long? Keep doing it until it stops. Just keep renouncing it and renouncing it, because you don't know how deep it went. And so that's what you'd be telling them to do if they'll do it. That's for parcel. Yeah, where are we at? Oh, forget about that. Okay, Renee.
All right, so the question I was asking is, what exactly constitutes adultery? Now, I know you had a sermon on this. I had some conversation recently, and I guess I was just shocked at the split on what constitutes adultery. Because, you have some people who saying that, for instance, if I was married to a woman and let's say she was making out and coveting with another guy, that would be adultery because, it's not penetration basically.
Yeah.
So to that shit's only penetration.
Yeah.
And anything outside of that, and go down to the first base. As long as you're on first base sexually, that's count as adultery. That's not grounds for divorce. So yeah, basically that's my question because it was like a 40-60 split, I feel, in percentages. You got 60% saying that all forms of sexual morality outside of the marriage, eating down to making out is adultery. And then you got the other 40% like, no, you have to wait until, they basically penetrate them, right? Well, but then, my bad.
You're good, man. I'll crack it, man.
Last thing I want to say too, I also want you to touch on this because, I'm not gonna lie, I'm very, when it comes to that type of stuff, I'm very like cutthroat. I'm like, no, this is this, right? So
I blush it.
even when it comes to, let's say flirting, sexting, sending illicit photos,
Okay.
right? Like, I want to know where that is in its entirety.
Good. You need to know the line. Absolutely. And it's a real easy answer. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's the term porneia. That's where we get the word pornography from. It's the Greek word. Okay. Here's where it goes. And see if this encapsulates what you're saying. Porneia is anything sexually physical that I do, which would include kissing, which would include oral sex, would include grinding. It would include being with someone in the bed and saying, well, we're just hugging in the bed. No. And so, yes, if someone was making out, that's a physical act, it would fall under the definition of porneia. Now, here's the thing. The person doesn't have to divorce if they don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay? And so that's their choice. But the term porneia encompasses anything physical outside of sex. So kissing someone else that's not your wife, that's the term porneia. Now, guys have been kicked out of ministry for that. There's been guys that, pastors that have been making out with gals that are not their wife, and they lost their ministry. They're out because, yes, we interpret that as adultery. But it doesn't include non-physical. So if someone is saying, I'm going to divorce my husband because he's looking at pornography, you don't have the grounds for it. You don't have the ground for it because it's not physical. And a lot of people want to turn it into the incest. Well, it's not, because the word doesn't allow anything non-physical. It's a physical word. Now, that encompasses a lot of physicality. It encompasses a lot of stuff, man. And sky's the limit on the physical realm. But the fact that, we can only get a divorce if there's penetration, because porneia also includes that as fornication, and even physical fornicating is that as well. Could be interpreted that. So yeah, that's the real thing you have to know about. Okay, go ahead.
So then, just so it's really, really clear, right? Because I did think that, like, for instance, let's say I had a phone problem when I was in a marriage. I did think, okay, if my wife wanted to divorce me, she could. So
she can separate from you,
okay,
but not divorce you until you've got your addiction figured out.
So then with going into, like, if I had a wife, right, and she was, like I said, let's say flirting sexually with somebody, sending illicit photos. So like talking dirty to somebody else, basically, that's not in a marriage. Or let's say she sent them, I'm just being very,
Go for it.
But let's say she sent them like photos of herself nude and all these things. So in those cases, it wouldn't be grounds for divorce.
No.
Okay.
Because it's non-physical.
Okay.
Now, what would I say? I said, at this point, probably need to physically separate, and we're not going to divorce, but we're going to physically separate so someone gets their head screwed on straight, because that's pretty serious, right? Doing that. So so that's the thing, is I can't go further than Jesus. Okay. But I will say, Paul allows separation. Now, I might have to we might have to get separated at one time. Now, how long separation it'll last, I don't know. It depends on if that guy's going to get help. And sometimes what I see in the separation is they're separated indefinitely because of that. And so some people have to live out their lives like that. And quite frankly, I've dealt with people that have had to live out their lives like that.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not going to go as far as what the word is. The word is a physical act. Okay, so anything physical, kissing, oral sex, grinding, whatever, that you're done at that point.
So like even when it says like if you look at one with lust, right, you commit adultery with them. I forgot the part of your word. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to understand.
No. Don't confuse the marriage thing with lust.
Okay.
Okay, don't conflate the two. Because then everyone would be divorced at that point. Okay, just put it that out there. There's a profound difference because porneia, lust is in the mind. There's nothing physical happening, right? It breaks the law of thou shalt not commit adultery. But lusting doesn't bring the penalty of physically adultery. There's a difference because of the penalty and the consequence. So, yeah. But lust is a non-physical act. Does it break the law? Yes. Is it less of a sin? Yes. The grave sin would be to physically commit adultery. Just like murder would be a worse sin than thinking, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Right? There's degrees of sin and degrees of consequences. So what Jesus is saying is that there's a physical consequence for a physical sexual problem. But not lust. You couldn't put lust in there.
Okay. Thank you.
It's the heart of it, but yeah. Roman, yeah.
All right, Pastor. So one of the questions that I've been, or at least had in question for a while now, is the background of like Lilith. From what I heard is, her being the Adam's first wife, and then also like the queen of demons and all that. But what is like really like the origin, or like, because it recently came into a conversation with one of the ladies I know from the office, that even they use her to kind of not really be under, or how would I put it, not to obey like their husbands and all that. So basically kind of, if she's not, if she doesn't be under authority of a man, what should I do? That the same. So they kind of use her for that as well. So what's kind of like the origin of her? No, that's been really my question for.
Yeah, I think if I remember on top of my head, the concept of Lilith came from Jewish Kabbalism, and that's Jewish mysticism, and saying that's Adam's sort of wife. And again, there's no basis to say that. But what we understand in the demonic realm, the concept of Lilith is used for lesbianism. That's where it comes from. There's a spirit of lesbianism. And that's the Lilith spirit, so to speak. And so what the demons do is convince people to be lesbians through that spirit. Again, that's where it is since made of, but there are things there, spiritual things there. So when someone takes on that motto, you're going to see a rebellious spirit in the woman, and you're going to see eventually a turn to lesbianism. That's where that comes from. And the same is true in homosexuality. The same is true in sexual perversion. They all have a demonic or fallen angel aspect that's pushing that sin from behind. So if you watch what happened in American history, we had the sexual revolution in the 60s. And then after that, you had the homosexual thing pop up. And then lesbianism popped up. And now, killing children. And that's not an accident the way that happened. Because you have sexual immorality leads to perversion, sexual immorality, homosexuality, lesbianism, and then they end up sacrificing children to Moloch. It's that pattern. That's actually a demonic pattern. So the Lilith pattern is to turn women into lesbians. And Asmodean, or I can't pronounce the demon, the spirit, Asmodeus or whatever is the spirit of homosexuality and pushes that aspect to it. So the fact that you're dealing with people that saying they like that, that's what pushing them into that direction. And it's the spirit of rebellion. But that's where it came from. And it's nonsense as far as like biblical origins. This is crazy, and that's as worse as saying that Eve had sex with a snake. I mean, and I don't know if you've heard that, but that's out there too. And it's like, what are we talking about? Where'd you get that? Again, it's coming from the occult, right? But the Lilith spirit, that's where it centers from. It's demonic, completely demonic. I hope that answered it. Yeah. Okay. Where are we at?
Hi. So, hi. My question kind of stems from Jeremiah. I believe. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, basically how, like we're all going through hard things. We've all been through hard things.
Sure.
And it's important to mourn correctly. And so I guess my question, and mourning, probably that season lasts differently from probably depending on what the situation is, obviously. But my question would kind of, is there ever a point that you get out of that mourning state? Because a lot of times, depending on the degree of how badly you've been hurt or whatever that happened, sometimes, like young adults, we struggle. Like we're going to, I mean, everyone has this struggle, but you're going to face the fact of distracting yourself with, I mean, like he was saying, when it's like alcohol, drugs, all that, or distracting yourself with performative, which happens in church too. That level of just distracting yourself. And yes, you're in the church, but you're not processing things correctly. And so, when you are processing things the right way, you're mourning the right way, you're surrounding yourself with the right people, you're surrounding yourself by meditating on the correct character of God instead of, yourselves, things like that. Is there ever a state when you're out of that? That's my question, because then I think once you're mourning something, you're just relearning how to live because you've changed, and it's just like there's only so much they could do because you're a whole different person. I mean, not a whole different person, but like you know what I mean. So then you're just kind of relearning how to process this next step, I guess. But like basically, my question is like, are you ever out of that mourning state? Because I know, and then also how to I guess, is there ever a process of like mourning correctly? Like, say you've lost a loved one, what's the process of mourning correctly? And like, are we ever out of that? Because ultimately, when you lose someone, you feel like a lot of times when you lose someone, like say you lost your spouse,
Yeah.
you feel like you're not yourself anymore, and you're gonna have to move on without them. And then, you know what I mean? So,
Totally.
anyways,
Totally.
I don't
It's like when let's talk about someone that dies in your family that you love. That's not going to be replaced in this life. You're going to have a big gap in your soul because they're missing now. So don't ever believe any counsel said, "We'll just get over it." You'd never get over losing somebody when they die. Now we'll see them again. We have that joy. Now, how do we know we're grieving correctly? Well, there's cycles of grief, and so the initial cycle when grief hits is the shock. Okay, and that's like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Is this really happening to me? And like, you go into surreal. A lot of people get stuck in shock. Like, this didn't happen. Then you move into anger. And like, you get mad at God, you get mad at life, you get mad at everything. And so people get stuck in anger. Then the next one is depression. And they get depressed, and they can get stuck in depression, and they get stuck in depression the rest of their life. Then they get stuck after that one is bargaining. Well, if I would have done this different, if I would have and taken that ride and went in that car, and I would have went on that date, so you start bargaining and questioning. Okay. You can get stuck in any one of those I just said: shock, depression, anger, and bargaining. And I've seen people never get out of those. Now, here's the thing. If you grieve properly, you will work through all of those. And the end is, I can let it go now. Not saying the hole in your heart will ever be filled, but now I can move forward with the rest of my life. I'm not depressed. I'm not angry. I'm not bargaining anymore. I have grieved, and now moving forward. So you do get past the grief. You never get over the loss. You get over the grieving. But that's God's way. He gives us grief so we can process things. And what you're doing is you're processing with truth set you free. And eventually you get to the point where like you're like a trapeze artist where he swings from one trapeze to the next, you let go and you grab the next one. And what happens is people don't want to let go because they think if they let go, they're never going to experience that loved one again. And that's why they don't let go. So they stay in anger, they stay in grief, they partially not grief, but that depression or whatever, because they never going to get it back. But like I just said earlier to Jeremiah, that you do get it back. You do get your relationships back. And when someone's ready to do it, if they let go of that trapeze and they grab for the next one and they move to the next season of life, whether that takes 2 years, whether it takes 5 years, it's all different for different people. But you do get past the grief. You do. And you can recognize, yes, this happens to me, but you know what? I'm good now. I'm still missing that person, but I'm good. And they live the rest of their life healthy. That's how it's supposed to work. But yeah.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that, I think it's just a struggle when you haven't done that, and everyone's going to face that hardship eventually, because once you put that into practice, when other things come about, then you can handle them faster. And if anything, you're going to feel bad, but you almost grieve faster because you know how to process it correctly.
That's it. And you're hitting a good point. How long does it take to grieve? It depends on how will you process it with truth. And yes, the quicker you are to get the truth to the situation, the quicker you get free, right? But you have to go through grief. You have to. That's part of it. You do not want to sit there and say, I'm not going to grieve. I'm not going to shed a tear. You do not want to be like that, because that means you're burying your emotions. God gave you your emotions to get them out. Get it out. And once the emotions get out, you have healing. So do not bury emotions. You might have to cry for days. Get it out. That's okay. Get it out. Get it out. Because you lost something. And that's part of the grieving process. But when you say, I'm not breathing, I'm going to shed a tear, I'm going to bury it and pretend it didn't happen, you're getting worse. It actually hurts you even worse than that. So, good question. Okay. How else are we doing? We got it all covered? Wow. Those are amazing.
Actually, I got one.
Go ahead, man.
So actually, I got 2 questions.
Go for it.
All right, so I'll do the main one first.
Okay.
So, how do you find what is God calling you for? Because a lot of time I don't feel like he's in church, but I feel like he has a different purpose. How would you go about? We're gonna find out. We're going to know about that.
Good. It's a good question. Love that. Okay, so that's the first question. Okay, here's the thing. Marcus, I want you to look at your history. Your whole growing up, where you're at, all the way to this point, because what you're going to see is God's hand in preparing you. Okay, so you have to look at the high points of what he's been preparing you for. Okay, second, then, you want to look at your pain. You want to look at your trauma. Because it's not an accident. Certain things happen to you. It taught you something. Okay? The third bit, you want to look at your physical gifts. What did God give you? Fourth, you want to look at your spiritual gifts. What are the spiritual gifts God gave you? Now, when you put that all together, it's going to give you a direction. And it should, and now it's going to be fuzzy, but then I want you to set out in that direction. And once the minute you set out, it starts getting clearer and clearer and clearer. But it's not going to be you trying to struggle. It's all based on your past. He's going to prepare me for it.
Your testimony is just your all around gift that he gave you as of testimony.
Nate, write down on a paper your physical gifts. What you're going to say, well, I'm good at organizing. I'm smart in this area. I like math, or I like reading, or I'm good here. I'm good at public speaking, or whatever. Write those things down. And what you'll see is there's a direction they're heading to. And then you have spiritual gifts. And you have to figure out your spiritual gifts as well. Because your spiritual gifts are definitely going to tell you where to go. But think about your history. What is he preparing you for? What has he used in your life? What experiences have you had? All of that is meant to say, this has been career for you. That makes sense? Okay. You got to think about all of that a little bit. Now, what's your second question?
Okay. Second one, second one is kind of what both said, aliens and stuff, about how does like Wisconsin the same thing. Okay. So like for me, I don't know why, but I always wake up like with dreams of like aliens, like bro, all the time. Like it's sometimes it could be different war type of war. Like yeah, just something in war with aliens or the broadband about a piece of work, something you know. And it's just like it's weird because I never read for information. So okay. And a lot of times when I start hearing about relation, it's just like it's what happened with you. And but a lot of times, like God talks to me, well, I don't know if it is him or not. It's he gives me foresight or something gives me foresight. And this is funny. I don't know where that's coming from. And you know, like something in like days off or something in the future or in couple days. Okay. So how would you oppose?
Are you like watching like YouTube videos on this stuff, or what's peaking? It's not like you're studying, reading books on this stuff.
That's it. But
okay,
and that no.
So it's just you just have these random dreams. Well, and then you're having intuitions or something like that.
Yeah, but like, well, I don't consider intuition a saber Holy Spirit. Like kind of latest. But how would you go about it for that? I guess or discern that.
My interpretation is if you're having recurring dreams, okay, these are recurring and just they're always aliens or something. Something's going on. So are they terrifying you in the dream?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So what I would probably classify that as, if you're repeating, okay, it's one thing to have a bad dream, okay, but if like Brandon, I've had like a dozen of the same thing. Okay, if you're saying that, you're being demonically harassed. That's what's happening, because that's not an accident. You keep having the same dream over, and they're attacking you, and it's the same kind of motif.
Yep.
Okay, that's a red flag. So then the next question I would say is, why are they going after you?
Obviously, I feel like it's close to the Father. Have you pay?
Because you're even close to Jesus and God.
Yeah.
And they're trying to intimidate you. Okay. That might need the very thing. Because when did you become a Christian?
Like 3 years ago.
Okay. Were you involved in anything before that? Like a cultic or anything like that?
No, I was a Catholic troop, but yeah, man, fine.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Okay, so one of the things I will say is, and I've talked to other people, many people that had demonic dreams, and if they're not involved in the occult, they're not doing anything, like worshiping high or anything weird, then they are trying to scare you of growing in your relationship with the Lord. And here's what you have to do: you just have to keep persevering and drawing near to Him. Is here what they're trying to do? They're wanting to see if they can make you afraid and back you off. And you have to show them you are not going to back off from your relationship with God. That you're going to go forward and keep pushing it in your faith. You need to pray before you go to sleep. I pray that God protects your mind and your dreams and protects you from demons and sends your guardian angel to protect you. But here's what will happen. If they keep noticing that you keep persevering, you keep drawing closer, they're going to basically give up on you. But they're trying to see how long they can wait you out. That's what they're doing. And they're going to say, look, let's see what this guy does. If we can convince him of moving off of God and going back to his old life, then we got it. So you have to prove to them. How long you have to do it, I don't know. Long enough to where they leave you alone. But there's no doubt that's the line of dreams. When you see that, Kyle.
Yeah.
It's same basically. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. That's what's happening. But good question. Go ahead, Ulysses.
Yeah. All right. So I guess mine's a follow-up question to
finding your calling in Christ.
Okay.
I think something as new believers that we struggle with finding your identity in Christ.
Yeah.
Things. And the biggest thing to me that's been pulling me in the season that I'm going in is finding my identity in Christ, truthfully.
Sure.
So how do you go about that?
Yeah, you're hitting a bit one because, back to what he's asking about, what kind of career path do I take? You can't figure out your career path until you know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, you're in a struggle. Like, you're going to try this and try that, and it's not going to work. So, okay, how do you find your identity? Here's what you got to do. It's found in the new covenant. It's who you are in Christ. So it's always in Christ. It's not apart from him. So it's in the new covenant. So what do I mean? That means your identity is going to be found in the New Testament. That's where the new covenant is found. And here's what I want you to do. All of you want to find out who I am. You start reading the New Testament, start in the Gospels, and go through it. And anytime Jesus says, this is who you are, you're the light of the world, you're the salt of the earth, you mark that down. And what you got to do is you got to figure out, okay, what does it mean to be light? What does it mean to be salt? And you move on from there. Get those under your belt, figure those out, and write those down. And you keep moving on. And as you work your way through the New Testament, it's going to give you probably somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 100 different identities in the new covenant about you, of who you are in Jesus. It's going to call you a king. It's going to call you a priest. It's going to call you, you're set free. You're a new creation. You've got to know what all of those things mean. When you figure that out, then you have to then believe it and apply it to yourself. Okay, I am light. I am salt. I am a king. I am a priest. What does that mean? Then you act it out. Now, here's the thing. Once you figure those things out, and by the way, I can email you for this. I've already put them together. Okay, so I can see you a lot of time. So maybe I'll email Jeremy, and then he can email all of you guys about how to find your identity in Christ. It's all there. But here's the thing: you still need to do the homework, because I can give you all the scriptures, but you got to go back and study them and then appropriate them. Now, here's the thing: if you believe who you really are in Christ, holy smokes, you will be set on fire, and you will be like a laser beam on exactly what you need to be doing with your life. It will. But here's the problem: you will struggle to believe it. You will struggle to believe because you have lies in you, and I have lies in me, and I have to get it out. And that's what struggled for like 10 years. I struggled with who I really was. But once I figured out who I was, I'm like, oh, that's the path. It just like light up. It lit up. I just was a pastor. But until I figured out who I was, I didn't know what path I was going to be on. And so that's with you. That's the good news. God's not trying to hide, but he wants you to do the work. And he said, I'm not going to spoon feed you. I'm not going to serve it to you silver platter. He goes, I put it in my book, and you guys need to figure it out and discover it. And once you discover it, you will find what you're supposed to be doing with your life. And once you get it, it all makes sense. Everything starts lining up. You're like, oh, I get that. That's why I went to school here. And that's why I have those friends. And that's why I have that experience. It all starts lining up. And you're like, it makes perfect sense. So I was sort of there. I'll email him, and then you guys can study it. Okay.
Appreciate it, Pastor.
You betcha. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hey.
Going to that, like finding your purpose in the Lord and stuff. I've had the blessing of figuring that out, doing pro-life stuff.
Good.
It's just, I struggle with it feeling like enough. Like, I do all this work, and I can tell other people what I do, and I'm like, hey, maybe I am doing a lot. But then I'm just like, it just never feels like
Like you're doing enough? How come? You don't know? Okay. So here's what you need to think about. You need to think about your standard. If you're coming up, I never feel like I'm doing enough. That's the performance standard. That's what I had. And what happens is you set this bar for you, like a high jump. And you're like, okay, that's the high jump. I got to make that. And then you make it. And you're like, I got to set the bar higher. And then you said higher. And you just keep saying higher. And you're like, I never can do enough. It's right. So my inkling is, because that's my problem, is I had a performance issue. And even you can get in performance issues with Christ. Am I doing enough for Christ? Well, I don't know. You see, you never can answer that question. So what you do, you keep setting about higher and higher. And then before you know, you're sitting 70 plates. And you're like, am I doing enough? I don't know. And see, you never know. Because part of you and part of me has a performance identity. And so there's a lie inside of you. There's a lie inside of me. And the lie is, I have to keep performing. I have to keep performing. I have to keep performing. And you actually don't. Because Christ has already performed for you. And so that's what I had to learn. So deep down inside, what I would suggest is I would get a yellow pad or paper and write out, what lies do I believe about my performance? Why am I performing? And why do I keep setting the bar? Even in Christianity, you can do this. And keep setting the bar higher and higher, and it's never enough. And here's what happens. When you feel that you can't do it, I didn't beat myself up. And it's like, she's doing more. And so the next day I go out and practice more. And I would practice for another hour. Maybe I'd run another mile. Or maybe I'd pitch another hour in the bullpen. Just to see if I could just get more. And that's the thing that happens if you start performing. You keep setting the bar. You went, where does this end? It never is. You just die. You just die of exhaustion because you just don't know where it doesn't end anywhere. So my thing is, my hunch is, you have a performance identity inside of you. And that needs to get out of you. So I would find out, what lies do I believe about my performance? I can tell you what mine were. If I don't perform, I'm not valuable. If I don't perform, I'm not lovable. If I don't perform, I don't get attention. That was my lies. You can have different lies, but you gotta get it out of you. Because you know what happened? You will exhaust yourself and kill yourself in the process of doing it. You'll become more workaholic. That's what will happen. That's what my tendency is to be a workaholic. It never ends. When do you shut it off? I don't know. But if that's my performance, John, you don't want to be like me. Please don't do that. But I have a hunch that's what's going on. Okay. How are we good? Okay, go ahead. We done? Your last one? Okay.
Okay, I'm just trying to discern the season. I know God is bringing forth like youth and young adults into the group. And I see the hunger. I saw the hunger out there when people want a community. And I know that the enemy doesn't like a community. And so how can we keep a community strong, when it comes to following Christ, not just believing in Christ, but following, picking up a cross? How can we keep it strong and be aware, be alert?
Good point. Okay, so your quintessential chapter on that is John chapter 17. Sanctify them by the truth, Father, to keep them unified. Okay, here's the thing. How does unity happen? Unity happens when people are centralized on truth. And they have to believe the same things. You cannot have unity when people are believing that a man can have a baby. Okay, you summon unity with that, right? Or weird stuff like that, that abortion's okay, or no, you can't have unity with that. So what happens is, let's just say this, you have a unified group here, and they're all centralized on the truth, okay? What if happened is if someone doesn't believe that truth, it will start causing division. It happens in relationships, it happens in marriage. Someone doesn't believe the truth. And when they don't believe the truth, then they start spreading that. And then it becomes cancer and it starts to bite. So what Christ was asking is that when he was praying for the disciples, he's praying that sanctify them by your truth. Make them all on the same page as far as truth. Now, there's disagreements in Christianity. Don't get me wrong. There's secondary, tertiary issue that we disagree on. One of the main blame things you can't disagree on. Like Jesus is God. that he sacrificed himself on the cross, that he's coming back, the Trinity. Those you cannot not believe in those things. So at the end of the day, truth is what centralizes and unifies. So that's Jeff in front of everybody. The tendency now is they'll say, you know what? We just need to drop our theological distinctives. We all love Jesus and let's sing Kumbaya. Loving Jesus is not theology. That's an emotion. That's right. Right? And so you do not drop your theological distinctives, because if you do, you will lose unity. So Christ is saying that unity is built on truth, not emotion. Okay? But that's the new trend in the churches. Hey, we don't want to hold to everyone to the same standard. Let's just drop it. And if you love Jesus, okay, that's enough. That's not enough. That is not enough. And so don't get fooled by that. So it's always truth.
Okay. And how do you work with a new believer that comes in the group and they just...
Yeah. So truth seeking is the key. We got people in our church that are truth seeking. They're not even believers, but they're truth seeking. They want to know the truth. And God bless them. They're wanting to know the truth. That's the difference. Versus someone that we've had people come to our church, adults, and they are not seeking the truth. They're here to cause division. They're here to push their own agenda and some weird, crazy theology that they're pushing. And we spot them a mile away. But truth seekers are different. And see, truth seeking, you could be at any level. You could be an unbeliever. You could be a new believer. You could be a mature believer. As long as they're truth seeking, everyone's on the same page. Because, I know everything, but I want to know. I'm truth seeking. That's unity right there with truth seeking. This unity comes from people not really, they're not buying, they're selling. They're selling their own agenda, right? That's when that's caused the problem. So it doesn't matter where they're at on the ledger as far as their truth seeking. And that's how we're all supposed to be, right? Okay, man. We had a good night. It's almost 9 o'clock. Wow. That's amazing. Jerry, anybody have any announcements before we get out of here? Okay. You got your class Sunday, right? Okay. Anyone else? We all good? Okay. Yes, go ahead. What do you got?
Sorry, I want to go home, but
Your ladies, guys, and they're wanting to go.
I'm gonna have a very disciplined.
You got to quit?
Yeah, this quick. So, okay, when it comes to like beef offside over, a lot of times we'll see that in Pentecostal churches.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Right? Are denominations with faulty theology still used, or are they still spoken through? Like, can I get a word of knowledge or, prophecy through someone who's from a Pentecostal church, for instance? And does this connect to Matthew 7:22 at all?
Yeah, well, you can, because even in the most craziest of all places, God can speak through that then. If he can speak through a donkey, he can speak through a donkey, okay? If it's a Pentecostal church or a hyper-charismatic church, can God use? Absolutely. Can people get saved? Absolutely. That's not his endorsement of the theology, right? But it's God saying, I can use whatever means I want to use. You can't put God in the box. And if he can use donkeys, he can use that too. Okay? Speak to a donkey, right? Okay.
A donkey.
So sometimes a donkey will speak to you, and you better listen to the donkey, okay? Sometimes. All right, let's pray and look at you out here, man. Father, thank you, Lord, for all that you're doing in our lives and in the folks here, our truth seekers, and are looking for the answers in life. And Lord, I just pray you grant them wisdom, grant them direction, grant them their understanding of their identity and who you made them, so they can be the person you want them to be, and do what you want them to do and how they were designed to it. And so, Father, show that to them, lead them in that path, and help them to continue to seek your truth. Bless them now as they go. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you guys.